Autobiography of a Yogi by Paramahansa Yogananda. Picture this. You're alone in your room, crushed by the heaviest grief you've ever known. Your mentor, your spiritual guide, the person you loved like a father, he's gone. You buried him with your own hands. The emptiness feels like it might swallow you whole. Then, on an ordinary afternoon, something extraordinary happens. The sunlight streaming through your window suddenly intensifies, becoming almost unbearably bright and beautiful. And right there, in the center of that brilliant light, a figure begins to take shape. It's him, standing before you, as solid and real as anyone you've ever touched, with that same gentle smile you thought was lost forever. He speaks your name, and in that single moment, every assumption you've ever made about life, death, and the nature of reality itself shatters. This isn't science fiction. This actually happened to the author of one of the most mind-bending books ever written, Autobiography of a Yogi. Since 1946, this book has been quietly changing lives. It's sold over 4 million copies and traveled across borders in more than 50 languages. Steve Jobs kept it as the only book on his iPad and reread it every single year of his adult life. George Harrison handed out copies to everyone he knew, insisting, "You have to read this." Artists, scientists, and seekers everywhere have turned to it when they sensed there was something more to existence than what meets the eye. The author, Paramahansa Yogananda, wasn't your typical writer. He was a spiritual pioneer who brought the ancient practice of yoga and meditation to America in 1920, decades before it became trendy. He arrived as a young man on a mission to prove that Eastern spiritual wisdom and Western scientific thinking weren't enemies, but two halves of a complete whole. This book tells his story, but it's so much more than a simple biography. It's a guided tour through a world where holy men can appear in two places simultaneously, where palaces materialize from pure thought, and where death itself becomes just another illusion to see through. It's a world where the laws of physics aren't broken. They're simply revealed to be one small piece of a much grander, more mysterious puzzle. Today we're walking that path with him, and I can promise you this. By the time we're done, you won't just have some wild stories to tell at parties. You'll have a completely new way of seeing your own life. You'll understand the hidden mechanics behind what people call miracles, the real purpose of yoga, and the incredible dormant power sleeping within your own mind, just waiting for you to wake it up. So take a deep breath. Let's dive in. Our story begins with something impossible, a memory from before birth. Imagine being a tiny, helpless baby who can't walk or talk, but somehow remembering a previous life with crystal clarity. You remember being a yogi, a meditation master, living high in the snow-covered Himalayas. This was the reality for the boy who would grow up to be Paramahansa Yogananda. Born as Mukunda Lal Ghosh in 1893 to a loving, well-off family in Gorakhpur, India, he felt like an exile from his very first breath. A deep, aching homesickness for the mountains and a life of spiritual solitude haunted him from the start. His mother nurtured this spiritual hunger. She wasn't just a parent. She was his first teacher, his closest friend. She filled his childhood with ancient scriptural stories and, most significantly, placed a small photograph of a great master, Lahiri Mahasaya, on their family altar. That simple picture would become his North Star. As a young boy meditating before this image, he witnessed something remarkable. Sometimes the photograph would seem to come alive. The saint's eyes would blink. His living form would step out of the frame, sit with him for a moment, then dissolve back into the picture. He felt an inexplicable love for this master he'd never actually met, a connection that seemed to exist outside of normal time and space. This wasn't just a child's imagination running wild. When Mukunda was 8, he contracted Asiatic cholera, a death sentence in those days. The doctors had given up. His mother, in one final act of faith, told him to look at Lahiri Mahasaya's picture on the wall. "Bow to him in your mind," she pleaded. "If you show true devotion, your life will be spared." As he focused on the photograph, a blinding light suddenly filled the room and surrounded his body. Instantly, the nausea, the pain, every terrible symptom vanished. He was completely healed. He knew, with unshakable certainty, that a hidden world of divine power was real and could be accessed through devotion. But this profound spiritual connection was about to meet profound loss. When he was just 11, his mother died. The grief was bottomless. He felt completely adrift, his heart shattered. It was in this darkness that his older brother revealed a secret their mother had left behind. Years earlier, a wandering sage had visited their home and told her that her time on earth was short. He gave her a prophecy. He would materialize a silver amulet for her to pass on to her son Mukunda when he was ready to renounce the world and search for God. The sage said, "When it has served its purpose, it shall vanish." The next day, while she meditated, the silver amulet appeared in her hands. Now, holding this mysterious object, Mukunda felt his destiny ignite like a flame. The amulet was a physical connection to unseen masters guiding him. His desire to leave home and find God became an all-consuming fire. His family, understandably, saw this as teenage rebellion. His father, a practical man and high-ranking railway executive, loved his son but wanted him to finish school and live a normal life. This created a classic battle, worldly expectations versus spiritual calling. Mukunda tried running away to the Himalayas not once, but twice. His first attempt was almost comical. Disguised in new European clothes, he and 2 friends set out for the mountains. One friend, terrified when Mukunda casually mentioned befriending tigers, abandoned them at the first train station. The other was caught with him when his clever older brother Ananta played detective and tracked them down. Every door to a spiritual quest seemed to slam shut. He was a prisoner of his family's love and his father's expectations. During this frustrating period, he encountered a fascinating parade of holy men. These meetings weren't random, they were lessons. There was the perfume saint, a yogi named Ganda Baba, who could create any fragrance at will. With a simple word, he made rose scent appear on Mukunda's palm and jasmine blossom from a scentless flower. He could even materialize tangerines inside bread. Mukunda was amazed, but also skeptical. Is it necessary to prove God with parlor tricks? He wondered. He learned that spectacular powers weren't the same as true wisdom. They were a sideshow, a distraction from the real path. Then came the Tiger Swami, a man of incredible physical strength who had once wrestled tigers bare-handed. He'd been a famous showman until a saint's prophecy warned that his pride would destroy him. In a brutal match against a ferocious tiger named Raja Begum, he was terribly mauled but victorious. The experience transformed him. Lying near death for 6 months, he realized the foolishness of his pride. He gave up fighting outer tigers and began the harder work of taming the inner ones, the wild passions of the human mind. From him, Mukunda learned that true strength lives in the will, not the body. And there was the levitating saint, Baduri Mahasaya, a sage who had mastered breath control so completely that his body would float in the air. But what impressed Mukunda more than the levitation was the saint's profound peace and wisdom. "Don't mistake the technique for the goal," the sage told him. reminding him that spiritual exercises are just tools. The real purpose is finding God. Each of these men was a signpost pointing the way, but none was his master. The amulet he wore hummed with silent promise. He knew his true guru was out there somewhere, waiting. But where? After a period of intense spiritual anguish at a hermitage in Benares, where he felt misunderstood and alone, he went to his attic room one dawn, determined to pray until he got an answer. He cried out to the Divine Mother of the universe, begging for a true guru. Hours passed. His pleas grew more desperate. Suddenly, he felt his body lift, and a divine feminine voice spoke from everywhere and nowhere. "Your master comes today." Just then, a young boy from the hermitage called him for an errand. Annoyed at the interruption but feeling a strange new peace, he followed the boy into the bustling streets of Benares. They walked through the crowded markets, a chaotic swirl of sights and sounds. Then, passing a narrow, unremarkable lane, Mukunda felt an unexplainable urge to turn his head. At the far end of the lane stood a man, motionless, dressed in the ochre robes of a Swami. He had a lion-like head, flowing hair, and a pointed beard. His eyes were locked on Mukunda. A shock of recognition coursed through him. It was the face he'd seen in 1,000 visions, the face he'd been searching for his entire life. Doubt crept in. "You're imagining it," a voice in his head whispered. He tried to walk on, but his feet grew heavy, as if turned to stone. He turned back, and the feeling vanished. He turned away again, and the heaviness returned. It was a magnetic pull, an undeniable force drawing him back to that lane. He handed his parcels to his bewildered companion and ran. He flew back to the lane. The quiet figure was still there, gazing at him. A few more steps, and he was at the man's feet. "Gurudeva," he cried, "divine teacher." The man's voice trembled with joy. "Oh, my own, you have come to me," he said again and again. "How many years I have waited for you." In that moment, a profound silence fell between them. Words were useless. With unbreakable clarity, Mukunda knew. This man knew God, and he would lead him to God. Past, present, and future seemed to merge. This wasn't the first son to find him at these holy feet. The master's name was Sri Yukteswar Giri. He led Mukunda to his temporary home, holding his new disciple's hand. "I will give you my hermitages and all I possess," he said. Mukunda replied, "Sir, I come for wisdom and God contact. Those are your real treasures." Sri Yukteswar looked at him with unfathomable tenderness. "I give you my unconditional love." Then he asked, "Will you give me the same unconditional love?" "I will love you eternally, Gurudeva." This was the beginning. But the disciple's path isn't always easy. Sri Yukteswar's first instruction was a test. He told Mukunda to go home, return to his family, and enroll in college. Mukunda was dismayed. Was he to be pursued by books his whole life? But he'd given his word. He agreed. This first act of obedience sealed their bond. In that moment, he felt an eternal shelter. The long, vague search was finally over. For the next 10 years, Mukunda lived in two worlds. He was a college student in Calcutta, but his real life was in his master's hermitage in Serampore. His college attendance was, let's say, sporadic. The pull of the ashram was too strong. Sri Yukteswar's training was, in Yogananda's own words, drastic. He was a perfectionist, hypercritical of his disciples. He wasn't there to make them feel good. He was there to shatter their egos. "Good manners without sincerity are like a beautiful corpse," he would say. He seemed to know Mukunda's every thought. Once, during a deep philosophical discussion, he stopped and said, "You are not here." Mukunda protested, "But I haven't moved. I can repeat every word you've said." Sri Yukteswar replied, "Nevertheless, in your mental background you were creating 3 institutions, one on a plain, one on a hilltop, and one by the ocean." Mukunda was stunned. Those were the exact daydreams floating in the back of his mind. This was the level of his guru's awareness. There was no hiding. The master was like a divine surgeon, cutting away every imperfection, every shred of vanity, every subconscious reservation. Yogananda said he trembled many times under this disciplinary hammer, but he was grateful for every blow. The hard shell of the human ego, he realized, can't be removed gently. It must be shattered. But beneath the stern exterior was boundless love and playful wisdom. One day, Master staged an elaborate cauliflower robbery. He had Mukunda buy 6 prized cauliflowers for a special dinner. Then he predicted one would be stolen because Mukunda had forgotten to lock the back door. He pointed out a crazy man down the road, and using his will, directed the man to walk to the ashram, enter the unlocked door, crawl under the bed, and steal one single cauliflower, leaving behind the gold rings and money lying in plain sight. Sri Yukteswar then dissolved into laughter, explaining to his bewildered disciple that the poor man had an intense craving for cauliflower. He was teaching a lesson about material carelessness while also demonstrating the hidden laws of the universe, that thoughts are vibrations, and a master can tune into them like a human radio, both receiving and broadcasting. Then came the training in faith. Sri Yukteswar predicted that the stars were about to cause a severe liver ailment lasting 6 months. He had Mukunda wear an astrological bangle of silver and lead, telling him it would shorten the illness to 24 days. Exactly 1 month later, the illness struck with excruciating pain. For 23 days, Mukunda suffered in agony. Finally, unable to bear it any longer, he traveled to Benares to see his guru. Sri Yukteswar greeted him calmly. "You say you have pain. I say you have none. How can such contradictions exist?" At his master's words, the agony vanished instantly, as if it had never existed. Through these experiences, Mukunda was learning that the world isn't what it seems, that mind controls muscle, that thought is a force like gravity, and that the entire cosmos is a materialized thought of the Creator. The pinnacle of his training came one morning when his mind was restless, his thoughts scattered like startled birds. Sri Yukteswar called him. "Poor boy," he said with deep compassion. "The mountains couldn't give you what you wanted. Your heart's desire shall be fulfilled." He struck Mukunda gently on the chest. In that instant, his body became immovably rooted. His breath was drawn out of his lungs, as if by a giant magnet. Soul and mind broke free from their physical prison and streamed out like fluid, piercing light. The flesh felt dead, yet he knew he'd never been more alive. His sense of identity expanded to embrace the atoms of the room, the people on the streets outside, the roots of trees in the ground. He experienced vast, spherical sight. He could see in all directions at once. Everything he looked at, his master's body, the pillared courtyard, the trees and sunshine, began to tremble and vibrate until all of it melted into a luminous sea of light. An oceanic joy broke upon the calm, endless shores of his soul. He realized that the Spirit of God is exhaustless bliss, and his body is countless tissues of light. He saw the entire cosmos, galaxies, nebulae, solar systems, glimmering within the infinitude of his own being. He heard the creative voice of God resounding as Aum, the vibration of the cosmic motor. This was samadhi, or cosmic consciousness. When his breath returned and he came back to his small body, it felt like a humiliating cage. His guru was standing before him, calm and unpretentious. "You must not get overdrunk with ecstasy," Sri Yukteswar said. "Much work yet remains for you in the world. Come, let us sweep the balcony." He was teaching the secret of balanced living. The soul must stretch over cosmic abysses, while the body performs its daily duties. This experience wasn't a one-time event. His guru taught him how to enter this state at will. It was the ultimate proof of what the scriptures taught, that man is not a mortal body, but a limitless, immortal soul. Yogananda's training was now moving toward its purpose. He'd been chosen for a special mission, one set in motion long before he was born. The architect of this mission was a mysterious, deathless master who lives, even to this day, in the high Himalayas. His name is Babaji. Babaji is the guru of Lahiri Mahasaya, who was the guru of Sri Yukteswar. He is a Mahavatar, or great avatar, a prophet sent to earth with special dispensation. He's retained his physical form for centuries, perhaps millennia, appearing as a youth of about 25. He works in humble obscurity, guiding humanity's spiritual evolution. Yogananda tells the incredible story of how Babaji first initiated Lahiri Mahasaya. It happened in 1861 at Ranikhet in the Himalayas. Lahiri Mahasaya, a government accountant, was mysteriously transferred there. One day, a voice called his name. He followed it up a mountain and met a young man who looked remarkably like himself. It was Babaji. With a gentle touch on his forehead, Babaji awakened Lahiri Mahasaya's memories of his past life. He'd been Babaji's disciple in that life, and had spent many years meditating in that very cave. "For more than 3 decades, I have waited for you to return to me," Babaji told him, his voice ringing with celestial love. That night, to fulfill a long-forgotten desire from his disciple's subconscious mind, Babaji materialized a vast, golden palace out of thin air. It was spectacularly grand, studded with jewels and filled with saints. It was in this ethereal palace that Lahiri Mahasaya was initiated into the science of Kriya Yoga. When the ceremony ended, the palace vanished, its atoms released back into the thought essence from which it had sprung. Babaji's mission for Lahiri Mahasaya was not to remain a hermit in the mountains, but to return to the world and live as a householder, an office worker, serving as an example that the highest spiritual attainments aren't barred to the family man. He gave him permission to give the sacred Kriya technique freely to all who humbly ask for help. This was a turning point for humanity. The ancient, secret science of yoga was now being made available to everyone. This legacy passed from Lahiri Mahasaya to Sri Yukteswar, and now it was to be carried to the West by Yogananda. Babaji himself had foretold this. Years earlier, at a religious festival, he'd met Sri Yukteswar and told him, "Some years hence, I shall send you a disciple whom you can train for yoga dissemination in the West. The vibrations there of many spiritually seeking souls come flood-like to me." Looking at Yogananda, Sri Yukteswar said, "My son, you are the disciple that, years ago, Babaji promised to send me." The call to America came in 1920, as Yogananda was meditating in a dusty storeroom at his school for boys in Ranchi. He had a panoramic vision of Western faces, a vast multitude gazing at him intently. That very day, he received an invitation to serve as the Indian delegate to an international congress of religious liberals in Boston. His father, shocked, asked who would finance the trip. "The Lord will finance me," Yogananda replied. The next day, his father handed him a large check, not as a father but as a faithful disciple of Lahiri Mahasaya. But Yogananda needed one more confirmation. He prayed with adamant will to hear the voice of God. He prayed until he felt his brain would split. At that moment, a knock came at the door. He opened it to find a young renunciate who looked exactly like a younger Lahiri Mahasaya. "Yes, I am Babaji," the man said, answering his unspoken thought. "Our Heavenly Father has heard your prayer. He commands me to tell you. Follow the behests of your guru and go to America. Fear not, you will be protected." The deathless guru had come in person to bless the mission. And so, in August of 1920, Paramahansa Yogananda sailed for America. His first public lecture given in English on the ship was a disaster. At first, he stood speechless for 10 minutes while the audience laughed. Then, in silent desperation, he prayed to his master. "You can. Speak," a voice answered in his consciousness. His thoughts suddenly fell into friendly relationship with the English language, and he spoke for 45 minutes, captivating the audience. He was learning that his guru was always with him, beyond the barriers of time and space. He spent 15 years in America, traveling from coast to coast, giving lectures, teaching classes, and initiating tens of thousands into Kriya Yoga. He established headquarters in Los Angeles, on a hilltop he'd seen in a vision years before in Kashmir. He befriended great souls like the botanist Luther Burbank, whom he called an American saint. He showed that science and spirituality weren't at odds. Burbank, the man who talked to his plants and created a spineless cactus through vibrations of love, understood the deep truths of yoga. In 1935, a message came from his guru, traveling 10,000 miles in an instant. "I have waited for you patiently for 15 years. Soon I shall swim out of the body. Yogananda, come." He returned to India. The welcome was overwhelming, but the most profound moment was his reunion with Sri Yukteswar. His secretary, Mr. Wright, an American who accompanied him, described the scene. No words were spoken, just the most intense feeling expressed in the mute language of the soul, their eyes sparkling with the warmth of renewed soul union. During this final visit, Sri Yukteswar bestowed upon him the highest monastic title of Paramahansa, meaning, quote, "Supreme Swan," a symbol of spiritual discrimination. "My task on earth is now finished," he said. "You must carry on." Yogananda's heart filled with fear. He was with his guru for several more months, but the hints of his passing were always there. He was visiting the Kumbh Mela, a massive religious festival, when the final call came. On March 9, 1936, Sri Yukteswar consciously left his body. Yogananda was devastated. He felt a black, brooding stream of grief that polluted the inner river of bliss he'd known for so long. He returned to his guru's hermitage in Puri and conducted the solemn burial rites. "Where has that divine sage gone?" he cried silently from his tormented spirit. Weeks later, his planned voyage back to America was unexpectedly canceled. He was in a hotel room in Bombay, in the depths of his sorrow. And it was there, on June 19, 1936, that the room filled with an unearthly light, and his master appeared before him, resurrected, in a body of flesh and blood. "I am the same," Sri Yukteswar told him. "This is a flesh and blood body. From the cosmic atoms I created an entirely new body, exactly like the one you laid beneath the sands at Puri." He hadn't returned to Earth, but to a high astral planet called Hiranya Loka, where he was serving as a savior to help advanced beings work out their astral karma. For 2 hours he explained the secrets of the afterlife, the nature of the astral and causal worlds, the laws of karma and reincarnation between the spheres, the process by which souls evolve and finally merge back into the infinite spirit. He explained that this physical world is a dream of God, His earthly body had been a dream image, and now his resurrected body was on a finer dream planet of God. "Differentiate, my son," he said, "between dreams and reality." He commissioned Yogananda to tell the world this story of his resurrection, to give new hope to a death-fearing world. "Tell all," his voice boomed as he vanished. "Whosoever knows by realization that your earth is a dream of God can come to the finer dream planet of Hiranyaloka and find me." The grief was gone, replaced by torrential bliss. The sorrow of parting had been a stark illusion. He now understood that his guru had never left him and never would. Yogananda continued his work, returning to the West, but his life was forever changed. He'd seen beyond the final curtain. He'd seen the conqueror of death. And he carried that certainty, that fire, with him for the rest of his days, sharing the message that what his master had done was not a miracle for one, but a promise for all. A promise that we are not these frail bodies. We are deathless, we are infinite, we are spirit. So what do we take away from a story like this? A story so packed with events that challenge our everyday understanding of the world? It's easy to get mesmerized by the miracles, the levitating saints, the materialized palaces, the resurrection. And honestly, they are a huge part of the book's power. They're meant to shake us out of our materialistic sleepwalk, to make us question the limits we've placed on reality. Yogananda presents these not as supernatural events, but as demonstrations of a higher, hidden science, the science of consciousness. He's telling us that the universe isn't just dead matter and random energy, but a living, intelligent, cosmic dream, and that we, as parts of that dream, have the power to reshape it. But if we only focus on the miracles, we miss the heart of the book. The true magic of Autobiography of a Yogi isn't in the spectacular feats. It's in the deep, unwavering, unconditional love between a guru and his disciple. It's in the relentless search for truth, the willingness to be broken down and remade, and the profound transformation that comes from total surrender to a higher purpose. The most important relationship in the book is between Yogananda and Sri Yukteswar, and it's not soft or sentimental. Sri Yukteswar's training is tough, almost brutal at times. He's relentlessly honest, stripping away his disciples' ego, pride, and attachments, piece by piece. He's not interested in making Yogananda feel good. He's interested in making him free. And this is perhaps one of the book's most profound lessons. True growth doesn't come from comfort. It comes from challenge. It comes from having someone in your life who loves you enough to not let you get away with your own self-deceptions. Another key message is the idea of self-realization. This isn't about belief or dogma. Yogananda presents spirituality as a science. He says you don't have to believe in God. You can know God. Kriya Yoga is presented as the technique, the scientific method for experiencing the truths that saints and prophets have spoken about for millennia. It's a practical, actionable path. This is what makes the book so revolutionary. It takes mysticism out of the clouds and puts it into a system that anyone, from a householder to a monk, can practice. It democratizes enlightenment. And finally, there's the beautiful, unifying vision of the book. Yogananda constantly speaks of harmony between all religions. He shows how the teachings of Christ and Krishna are one and the same, how the Bible and the Bhagavad Gita are singing the same song of divine love. In a world so often torn apart by religious differences, this message of unity is more important than ever. He wasn't trying to convert anyone to Hinduism. He was trying to help Christians be better Christians, Muslims be better Muslims, by showing them the universal science of knowing God that underlies all true paths. So how can we apply this in our own lives? We may not be ready to levitate or materialize palaces, but there are simple, powerful actions we can take away from this story. First, Start your own search. Yogananda's journey began with a question, a deep yearning. What's your deepest question about life? Don't be afraid to ask it. Write it down. Meditate on it. The book teaches that a sincere question, asked with your whole heart, will always receive an answer. Second, practice the art of stillness. You don't need a secret technique to begin. Just for 5 minutes today, sit somewhere quiet. Close your eyes. Don't try to stop your thoughts. Just watch them like clouds passing in the sky. In that silence, in the gap between your thoughts, you might begin to feel that deeper reality Yogananda speaks of. The book's promise is that within you is a place of absolute peace, a fortress that no worldly chaos can ever touch. And third, look for the divine in the ordinary. Yogananda saw his resurrected master, but he also saw the divine in his mother's love, the challenge of his guru, the kindness of strangers, and even in the taste of a mango. The lesson is that God isn't just in the spectacular visions. He's in every moment, in every person, in every experience, waiting to be recognized. That was a summary of Autobiography of a Yogi by Paramahansa Yogananda. We've touched on the incredible stories and profound teachings today, but I'll be honest with you, a summary can only take you so far. The real magic of this book happens when you read it for yourself. It's in those quiet moments when a particular story or simple phrase hits you in a way you didn't expect. This book isn't something you just read, it's something you experience. It plants a seed in your consciousness that continues to grow long after you've turned the final page. If anything we've talked about today has resonated with you, if you felt that spark of curiosity or that pull towards something deeper, I urge you to pick up a copy. The link is in the description. Reading it isn't just learning. It's an invitation to the greatest adventure of all, the discovery of your own self. Also, if you found this journey valuable, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It lets us know we're on the right track and ensures you won't miss our next exploration into another life-changing book. Let's keep seeking, keep growing, and keep discovering the wonders of the universe and of ourselves together.